But welcome, it's lovely to have you here. This is the last edition of our Manufacturing Roadshow. So, just a little bit of, I guess, looking backwards to look forwards. We know that we did our digital transformation during COVID and we're one and done. We don't need to look back at it anymore. Not quite the case. So what's happened, of course, is that we've all been thrust now into this digital world where I think the baseline was elevated so significantly over that time. The reality is we're now moving at a pace which is faster than, look, I've ever seen in my career. And so I guess the whole point of the show today is to give you some inspiration about how you can utilise some of that great platform you already have in place and how to go larger and faster. So looking at some of the expectations that we have now, customer expectations have certainly shifted. You know, I think about how I go and get service now if something breaks or, I have a problem with a product. It's typically looking in social media for action now. First thing I'll always try, can I get you on Messenger? Because I'm never home during the day and I just really cannot deal with a call centre, and I think a lot of you might feel that way. So now we need to service our customers in a whole different channels, 24/7 as kind of a must-have as opposed to a nice-to-have. Looking at our workforce, this is the biggie, I think. If we look at our region alone, there's a McKinsey study done in 2019 that suggests that 25 to 40% of all of the tasks completed by us are going to be automated by the year 2030. That was pre-COVID. So it suggests that's possibly 2028, even, coming a little bit closer to our future. That's a lot of transformation of workforce that we need to cater for. And it's not to suggest that we need to retrench people and then we're going to have a whole lot of humans unemployed. What it is about is finding a way to retrain and to reskill these people so they're doing things that add real value to your business. 89% of people who've been exposed to some of the great AI technologies that are building into our applications now have said their jobs are more rewarding than before they had the tools doing the monkey work for them. So there's a real fear, I think, with this generative AI coming into all of our applications. What does it mean for jobs? I think the message that we're getting is that it means our jobs are more meaningful and more enjoyable, quite frankly. Agile factories, so Internet of Things devices, looking at quality assurance via imaging now as opposed to humans. These are all the normal for manufacturers, certainly not, from science fiction anymore. So getting amongst those technologies is crucial. Resilient supply chains, let's hope that we've had the nightmare of the past remain in the past now, but clearly we all learnt our lesson about the importance of having a little bit more control over that supply chain. A bit of visibility, real-time information was absolutely critical as we sort of navigated out of that pandemic. So that's kind of a normal now in our everyday manufacturing story. We need to understand that supply chain and have as much control as we can over it. And then finally, security and compliance. We'll show you some great ideas today in terms of how to stop some of the biggest vulnerability when it comes to security and compliance, and that's your human beings. And I know I'm probably a big culprit of that in our own organisation. So some excellent tools within that stack that you probably already pay for today that can mitigate some of that risk for you. So as you can see here, we've got a couple of excellent stats that show that we are now at a stage of where we're all on this digital platform. And so now it's about how do we accelerate, how do we go faster, and how do we make sure that our investments we're making in these digital transformations are sustainable and they're going to serve us in the future. And that's some of the biggest struggles that we'll face today, really, is just about keeping up. In terms of benefits that can be realised, these are some stats that were done in a digital webinar hosted by the Harvard Business Review. There's a reference there. If anyone's interested in any of this research, if you need to help out with a business case or something, just ask. I can certainly give you the references. But clearly this was modelled on a 1 billion turnover manufacturer. And as you can see, the results are pretty phenomenal when you're looking at taking your digital transformation from a data lens. And what does that really mean? Essentially, your organisation, this should feel pretty familiar, hopefully, in terms of the different facets of your business. You might have your customer service off to one side, your marketing team out the back room somewhere designing their new campaigns. Various elements of your organisation typically have different systems as well running them. And so the real goal is about making sure you can actually drive transformation decisions based off data as opposed to just a good idea. So looking at it, what it might look like if you're trying to drive more revenue in your organisation. Let's say that you're maintaining a large asset, perhaps you're selling a heavy asset kind of a product, maybe a farming machinery, for example, and perhaps after a certain amount of hours usage it starts to suffer. Some components will always need maintained. So what we're suggesting is if you have that data and you know when that's going to happen, you can start to proactively design products that might be, for example, asset maintenance as a service. It's a whole new product line that you may never have thought of before, but suddenly it makes really good sense for you because you're seeing the data that says it always needs maintained at this point. And what you can get then is recurring revenue that you may not have had, but moreover, your product stays performing at its optimum best, and that's also really good for your brand. So taking a data-driven approach to revenue, for example, can open up new product streams that you never thought existed before. Looking at service, I think that's probably an even more obvious one. If we can give the information to our service agents in real time when they need it, we can drive some real efficiencies in that service area, but you can also improve your customer experience phenomenally. And I think everybody knows the difference between an organisation that's got data at their fingertips and one that doesn't, because you've been a customer of one and no one wants to tell their story time and time again. I had a scenario not so long ago, just only actually a few weeks ago, that I think is the best example of this. I needed a new sheet. Vintage wash linen is my preference, and there's one company I really like to use called Adairs, and they sent me a single instead of a king size, and the packing slip said it was meant to be a king size, everything matched up, but it definitely was not, it was a single. So I went onto Messenger, good news, they were able to service me right then and there in outside hours, a great customer service experience, very apologetic lady. Found someone in a store close by, which is actually 40 minutes drive. So I live in Auckland, you could suggest that's around 2 corners, but it is 40 minutes drive that we had to get to. Sent the husband during a working day because he's very good to me. And when he got to the store, he got into a full-blown row with the ladies behind the desk about how he's not going to pay for that today because he'd already paid for it in the past. It was set aside, it was meant to be waiting for him, and clearly the message just didn't get through. And I think we've all experienced that at some point. And I can tell you, I did not like the mood of my husband when I got home that night, and thus Adair's copped it in the ear from me about that terrible experience. But essentially, it's just about connecting all of those data elements together to produce a much more efficient service experience. So where to get started? You know, we've spoken about the importance about taking a data-driven approach to your transformation. I think that's really obvious, but you know, I've certainly got a lot more facts to share if we're not sold on that. But the best way to then move fast when it comes to data is using some of these AI technologies that are available to you today. AI already has the risk of being overused as a term, though. It's almost become the new digital transformation word of the now, and it means so many things to so many different people. So I've given you a few tips and tricks in terms of getting started. And number one is really about just getting a common understanding about what even is AI to you. What does it mean to your organisation? A really simple term that you can use is it's where a machine is doing what would normally be designated for human minds, such as problem solving, reasoning, reacting to the environment. So that's what I use as a definition of AI, but there are a few. So make sure you have a common understanding. Number two, know your business. So know where you are struggling to compete. You know, is it your yield losses? Maybe on-time delivery, you're lagging behind your competitor there. Perhaps it is in your service, your cost to serve. But know where you're not quite performing where your peers are, and that gives you a really good place to start and explore. The next one is about knowing how AI is solving problems today. This is going to be a really tricky one to stay on top of, team. It's changing at such a pace, honestly. I've been in the sector now, I've been doing this gig for about 15, 20 odd years. And this is definitely a moment where I'm probably the most interested to see how it's going to evolve in the next 2 to 3. It is moving very fast. So just because you've learnt some stuff today, next month your knowledge will be out of date. So stay abreast of how AI is solving problems in your industry. And then finally, I call this the bellbird syndrome. I see my techies do this quite a bit. No offence to any of them, but they're not in the room, so I should be okay. But essentially, it's where we've got a great idea, but we can't justify it. We can't actually get a business benefit we're trying to achieve. Leave that one as just a good idea and put it in the corner of the room. Essentially, you need to make sure you've got a problem you're trying to solve for when you take on this type of technology. You'll otherwise sink a lot of good money after bad, I'd suggest. So looking at how AI is working within the sector today, and these are all obviously real world scenarios that are in place in production around the globe. Scheduling agents is a really good one. There are a lot of tools out there now that will assist you with scheduling. So if you think of your scheduling that's typically done by some of the most seasoned experts in your company, I'd suggest, when we're looking at variables, when something happens we weren't expecting, it can take quite a bit of time to work through those variables. I remember one of the first technology solutions we did back in the day when we started this business from Dunedin was actually for H.W. Richardson and the Dines organisation looking at scheduling. The goal was to replace their big whiteboard. They had 3 gentlemen who were not too far from retirement, doing that scheduling every day on a massive series of whiteboards. And their ask of us was replace our whiteboards. Now I can tell you, if we were replacing those whiteboards today, we would have done it so differently to how we had to do it back in the day with a lot of investment. So essentially, bringing technology into scheduling is a really proven way to make problems go away faster. Knowledge discovery, I mentioned that before around the importance of giving your service agents that knowledge at their very fingertips at the time they need it. With AI wrapped over your knowledge discovery processes, you have the ability to reduce your yield losses by 20 to 40% while still improving your on-time delivery. So there's a lot of compelling data that suggests giving people the information they need at the right time is going to be the right way to solve a problem. There's an excellent video from Microsoft that shows one of their techies solving a Kubernetes issue. I don't know much about Azure or Kubernetes other than the fact that I've written off a lot of money in the past when we had to solve these challenges within the team. So it seems like it's an early area. They have 19 different knowledge-based systems. The tool, within a matter of seconds, surfaced up the answer to this problem, gave the references to where the documents were stored so that the human can verify it's correct, and then the bit that I love most, gave them the option to show empathy in their response. If anyone works with techies, they don't do that very well, so that was nice. We actually got a warm response to our problem. So, some great ways you can do that very fast now. AI-enabled product system design. Again, this is really around the ability to be able to do things such as reuse elements that you might have sticking on, spare on the shelf, I suppose, in your storeroom. If you want to create a whole new product, it can consider reuse. It can consider dependencies so that you're doing things in a much faster, more efficient way. So it's again just that ability to blend a lot of different variables and come up with an answer fast. Product performance optimization, much the same. You're thinking automotive sector. Maybe we've got to design suspension not only for comfort but also for safety. Perhaps we want the outside of the car to look good but also have sustainable components and think about efficiency as well. So it's again just layering in those various variables and doing it fast. And then finally, AI augmented root cause analysis. Specifically, if you're in the area of food production, this to me is an absolute must-have. Things go wrong, of course they go wrong. It's the expedience and the transparency with which you solve for them that really define you as a manufacturer. So having the ability to get to the heart of the problem fast and to solve it fast is key. So looking at all of these data points, this is again some of the bigger logos that we see in the Microsoft ecosystem and some of the stats in terms of improvements by taking a data-driven approach to your transformation. They speak for themselves. It's pretty compelling. So what are we going to do today? We're going to look at all facets of the Microsoft stack put together. Now that in itself seems nice and all, but I can assure you, you will not get that anywhere else. When we're talking a big global such as Microsoft, getting their teams to talk to each other is very, very difficult. So what we often see at big conferences is they'll show you one part, but then tell you that it interacts with another part and just let you use your imagination. So today, without smoke and mirrors, in real time, using the demo gods, which we've prayed very nicely to this morning, all facets of the stack are going to be put to its paces, including all areas around modern work, security, business applications, and the like. We've got some really cool stuff to show you as well with some of the new release technologies that aren't quite yet out in the public realm. And so they're the areas where we need to pray extra hard to the demo gods, but be kind. But that will give you a really good sneak peek to what you should expect to see in the ecosystem in the next couple of months. We're not talking years away at all. We're talking the next release. So by the end of the year, it'll all be general availability. Fusion5, hopefully, I think most of you know us already. I won't go on about Fusion5. We have a website. You can find everything you need to about us there. This is an old slide. I got into trouble from our sales manager. We're actually 780 people large now. We're in a good period of growth, but we have done so largely through organic reasons. We've been in New Zealand now for around 20 years and founded right here, still locally owned. I think what probably sets us apart from our competitors is really that local presence. All of our people that we talk about, our 780 headcount, are boots on the ground here in New Zealand or in Australia. We're trans-Tasman. I live here. I'm a Kiwi citizen, although I don't sound like it, but I provide the translation between some of our techies from Aussie and our Kiwi techies. So if you need someone to share dad jokes and you don't get it, I can help out. But essentially, we're an excellent organisation that shares knowledge really well, and there's no borders between our teams, which is a really beautiful thing. So lots of experts on the ground to help you. Here's some of the mugshots of people you'll be seeing today. They'll all introduce themselves. We've got in total 10 different experts floating around. These are the people at the top of their games. We're not charging you anything to be here, of course, no hourly rates. If they start to talk about work order numbers, I'll move in and just act as a barrier for you. But essentially, it's a great opportunity to drill these experts. They are, as I say, top of their field, and if there is not an answer they can't answer, I'm sure that we'll look it up for you, but that shouldn't be the case. Okay, but otherwise, happy to introduce to you our fictitious organisation. We've tried to land this with a bit of a tongue-in-cheek humour along the day. There will be a few dad jokes, and I'm sorry for that. It's essentially an organisation we've created called Robotics Division of Fusion5. We're in the business of creating human assisting robots so that we can assist with the human condition. Now, sometimes it goes right, sometimes it goes wrong. So we're going to show you the story of what happens when you order one. Obviously, it's manufacturing. We'll take you through the journey of perhaps some service incidents if things aren't perhaps going exactly as planned. Yeah, and throughout the day, you'll see all elements of the stack, as I say. So over to Mr. Tom Veach, who will start the journey with